Let's just unpack this a little bit more and find out the actual nuts and bolts of how this works. Motivational speaker Morwesi, Theledi and Veronica Monama from the Department of Correctional Services joining us here on eNCA. Now, ladies, afternoon, thank you so much for coming in to talk about, as we can see, a very, very complicated situation. Veronica, let me perhaps start with you if I can, just from the authorities' side of this. This was a lot of focus on the moms, obviously, and we got a sense of what the moms go through. What kind of support structures are in place for the children? How is this a good environment for them to be in?
Okay, to start with, let me just indicate that any correctional center is not a good environment for any child. But under the circumstances that the mothers find themselves in, they come with their babies or they give birth to their babies while in prison. The department is trying by all means to give the necessary support to the children in terms of all the basic needs that are needed. One of the reasons why we have to keep the baby until 2 years to be with the mother before he can be placed out to the family.
And Morwesi, I think afternoon to you. Help me understand, as someone who's a businesswoman, obviously you look at any woman with a child and understand how difficult that must be, especially in prison. What's your take on children in prison, and how do you view this whole situation?
With me, I gave birth in prison. I know exactly how it feels like to raise a child in prison. It's not a good environment, but one thing that as an offender, you get grateful for the opportunity to bond with your child, but it's not a good environment. It's not a nice thing to see your child grow up in prison.
Take me through, if I may, take me through your day when you were still incarcerated and you had your child with you. How did the day look?
We normally parade at 3:30, actually 7:30 in the morning. Then we'll have breakfast. Then you take your baby to crèche. And I was awaiting trial at the moment, so I never had a chance to do a lot of activities. Once I got my sentence, it was easy for me because the department offers us different kinds of programs. That's when I started doing various programs in the center. I was busy. As soon as I took my baby out, I did your public speaking, your drama, your choir. I did everything in prison. I became the face of the center, a role model to other offenders.
Veronica, Morwesi, I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I want to talk about that moment where you're separated from your child. I'm not sure if that happened to you, but I'll come back to you on that. Veronica, early childhood development.
Yes.
How is that being managed? What is the department doing to ensure that even when those incarcerated do come out, that there's no lasting effect, A, on the development of a young child, and that there is no emotional scarring that a child may have gone through? Yes, a very young child, some would argue, you're still able to help through, but a 2-year-old is very aware that they're being separated from their mom. Apart from the day-to-day needs, the medical needs and health needs of a child, early childhood development, how's that being managed? Who do you work with to ensure it's being done properly?
We are working with an NGO. It's a company where we've got qualified and accredited teachers to do the programs on early child development. And then right inside the correctional center, we do have a crèche where the babies are put and separated according to their ages, and then they get the lessons from those qualified teachers from the Department of Welfare.
What's the family involvement with the children?
Some families are very much involved with children, some because of the distance, of course, but they do come and visit. We allow them to come and visit every weekend. There's a visit, and for the unsentenced also there is a visit every week.
Morwesi, talk to me about that moment, and I forgive me, I'm not sure if you had to go through what that lady in the report mentioned, that after 2 years she was separated from her child. Did you have to go through that?
Definitely.
How did you handle that? How did your family handle that?
When the center was preparing the paperwork for my baby to go out, the biggest difficult position for me was the day before, where I have to take my baby out, the night before. It was painful. I remember I packed and unpacked his bags more than 5 times. I was in denial. He was my only sibling, the only person I could share the pain with. So I was letting go a part of me. And I remember that morning we went to the social worker's office and my family was there to take the baby. As soon as he turned his back, I just walked out. I never saw him leave.
What do you think could be done differently, if anything, about the way the Correctional Services handles this situation? As someone who's on the other side of this, is there anything that you would recommend to them, or that you would look back and go, it works well, but this might be better for both the person incarcerated and their child?
I don't think there's a better way of doing it. Once you have to separate with your child, it will be difficult. Whether you get to see it or not, or whether they prepare you mentally or not, it's still painful to separate with your child. Whether they they advise you to take your child out just after birth, that's more painful, because your baby won't even recognize you. So. It's just a very painful thing to separate with your child.
Veronica, help me understand then the kind of numbers that you're dealing with when it comes to moms who have their children in hospital. What are the numbers we're looking at?
In terms of the babies behind bars?
Babies behind bars.
Around about 20, 25 to 30.
It's 30 in the entire country?
Yes.
So it's quite a small program.
I'm only talking about the Johannesburg.
The Johannesburg, okay. So
yes, which is for Gauteng region as well.
Has the department ever been in a situation where the children would be better off with the spouse outside of prison? Do you make those kind of calls? How does that consultation happen? Have you ever experienced it?
The spouse, they do come and visit the children, their mothers, and in the prison, as well as when the spouse want to take the baby, even if the 2-year term is not yet there, we do allow that, but we allow them to come and have contact visit regular with their children.
And your relationship with your child, Morwesi, when you came out, perhaps just take me through that timeline. So I'm not sure at what point your child left you. I'm trying to say that as politely as possible, and you had come out. Give me an idea of that gap between that and how you were able to build on that relationship. Because I think that's what I imagine many moms in prison are most worried about. The sentence has to be served, but you will get out. How does Correctional Services help you through that, and to then you step back into this role of mom outside of prison?
I got a lot of support from my family. They brought my boy almost every weekend to visit. It was a 4-year gap. I stayed in prison for 6.5 years. I was serving a 10-year sentence. Coming out, I've got 2 boys. I've got a 12-year-old, and he's 8 now. My 12-year-old didn't believe me that I got my date of release. He never came to actually support me when I came out, to fetch me rather. And by my 8-year-old came, he was so excited. We normally call him the president. He's very talkative, he's very clever, and there's a myth that when a child is born and raised in prison, they are disturbed or they become slow or anything. I don't have that problem. He's a very supportive child. He knows that he's born and raised in prison. He normally says, I'm a special child. I was born in prison.
And Veronica, I'm going to leave you perhaps with the last comment here from your side before I wrap up. Is Correctional Services getting enough support? Are you getting your wish list fulfilled for babies behind bars from government? Or is it financial? Is it structural? Is it emotional? Are you getting what you need to fulfill your job?
Yes, we do. The government is supporting those children in terms of the budget, and then also in terms of the donations from the outside. People, our stakeholders, they are doing a great job to donate stuff for the babies every time and again. We do get that.
I'm very, very glad to hear that, and it's wonderful to hear your story as well. It's always wonderful hearing how you're able to come out and continue and rebuild all the time that you lost with your family. I'm going to say thank you very much to Morwesi Theledi joining us this afternoon. Also Veronica Monama. Veronica's from the Department of Correctional Services, and Morwesi on the far side, motivational speaker, and you can hear why, and also a businesswoman. Well done to you, and thank you very much indeed for coming in to speak to us.